their print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. You're probably tuning in right now for Harper's Magazine. Our schedule has changed. If you were listening Thursday night at 9 p.m., that is where you would have heard Harper's. That is going to be its new home. In place of it, we'll be playing the Niagara Falls Review, moving it from its Sunday night slot into Saturday with the rest of its community paper friends. Stay with us for this reading.
Hello, this is Bruce, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Thursday, May 14th, 2026 issue of the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. One of the top stories we have for you today is Kindness and Candy for TELUS Days of Giving. Article by Victoria Nicolau. School supplies lined a center table inside the Club Roma ballroom. Exercise books, packages of paper, a pencil case, pencils and erasers were placed inside new backpacks to be delivered to students. Along the side of the room, tables were filled with bowls of candy and stickers as kindergartners' packages paired sweet treats with handwritten notes of inspiration for Niagara's most vulnerable youths. Small reminders that they are seen, supported, and valued. And just outside, Reach, Niagara's mobile health clinic, offered tours with clinicians answering questions about its services. The morning event in St. Catharines was part of the 21st annual TELUS Days of Giving, for which business team members and community volunteers came together to pack 300 kits for kids and create 200 kindergrams. Each will go to Niagara organizations that provide support to vulnerable families, children, and youths through shelter services, rehab programs, and accessible health care. While TELUS has distributed more than 250,000 kits for kids across Canada, including 10,000 this year, Wednesday was the first full Days of Giving event held in Niagara since its formation. We are providing basic needs for children and youth in this region, and all these kits are staying in Niagara, said Maja Craig, TELUS's manager of community investment. It's important for us to partner with these charity organizations so that we know that what we're doing here today is going to help people. 8 Niagara organizations participated: Big Brothers Big Sisters of Niagara, Community Care of St. Catharines and Thorold, Contact Niagara for Children's Development Services, Education Foundation of Niagara, Gillian's Place, Niagara Children's Center, RAFT, and Reach Niagara. TELUS Days of Giving is held annually in May, ahead of the summer months, to relieve pressure on families, said Allison Ferry, manager of Community and Social Impacts. She's heard parents describe the challenges of saving throughout the summer to cover the cost of school supplies. We purposely give them out to the organization and let the schools know about it now, so they can let the families know, said Ferry. It's to have that sense like, okay, this means I can now have my lunch this summer and not worry. About 65 volunteers filled backpacks and made kindness grams with the candy-filled packages shared among Big Brothers Big Sisters, RAFT, and Community Care. It's our vulnerable youth who may be in homeless shelters, who may be in the after-school programs, who come from an unstable family, said Ferry. It's just that message of somebody thinking of them, or nice words of encouragement. Niagara Children's Center serves 6,000 children each year, Clinical Director Kathy Bell said. It's so nice for its therapists to offer parents additional support when they come to the center stressed and overwhelmed. Even though a backpack may seem simple, Bell said, providing a tangible item, something a little extra, offers a spark of joy. Parents are struggling to be able to provide those basic needs for their children, so this is really exciting partnership, she said. Niagara Children's Center is in the middle of its annual fundraising campaign, Help Kids Shine, raising money to support rehabilitation and support services for children with physical, developmental, and communicative delays. The cost to raise a child who has a disability, to provide expensive therapy, or to provide or purchase medical equipment to support their daily functioning is very, very challenging and costly, said Bell. To be able to help a little bit, I just feel so good. Reach Niagara provides low-barrier, judgment-free health care for Niagara residents, and its mobile health clinic, including the vehicle and medical supplies, is funded through a partnership with TELUS Health. Clinical counselor Jeff Charbonneau said the mobile clinic provides safe and equitable access to health care and support services, working with local shelters, support centers, and other community organizations to provide immediate care. Its goal is to provide health care to individuals who have been misplaced in the healthcare system. Soft opening set to unveil $6.9 million Sunset Beach facelift. Article by Karina Walter. A major $6.9 million renovation of Sunset Beach is nearing completion, and St. Catharines officials are excited for residents to have a look when it opens its gates this weekend. I've got to say it's unbelievable, the transformation, said Ralph Schultz, the city's senior project manager. As it's been coming together over the last 2 weeks, it looks like a brand new park. It really does. The city will have a soft opening on Saturday, as there are still some details to complete over the next month, including finishing the largest playground the city has ever built in years. But most of the features will be in place. A new boat ramp, expanded parking lot, new picnic tables and lounge chairs, accessible pathways, a stormwater treatment system, and shoreline protection measures. Schultz said the city always targeted the May long weekend for the reopening, and Rankin Construction is hitting the date, despite rainy weather this month. It's been hard keeping the people out and walking their dogs along the beach and things like that, so it's nice that they'll be able to use the facility again, Schultz said. Phil Christie, Director of Community Recreation and Culture Services, said the renovation is a combination of a consultant's design and what the community told the city it wanted. Whenever we spoke, people were talking about parking. People were talking about the boat ramp. People were talking about not enough shade at the beach, and we didn't have any park furniture at the beach. So we've made improvements in all those areas, Christie said. Christie said another change is the main entrance, which used to be a single driveway shared by vehicles and pedestrians. It has been widened and features a pedestrian-only lane. A lot of people walk into the beach who may park elsewhere or live in the neighborhood, and they have wagons and strollers and things like that. So if you want them to feel safe in their own lane coming into the park. Christie said while the final design isn't what every person would have wanted, he believes the result will work for most people. Sunset Beach has been closed since September for the upgrades that have been anticipated for years. The city gathered ideas from residents about what they'd like to see at the park, which helped form the Sunset Beach Community Vision, endorsed by City Council in 2019. A new washroom and an accessible Moby mat were completed in 2022 as part of the vision, but the city was able to move forward with the rest of the plan after receiving a $4.4 million grant from the province in March of 2023. It hired Dillon Consulting that December to create a comprehensive engineering design and then gathered more feedback. The park was shut down after last year's beach season, so Rankin could undertake the renovations. Mayor Matt Cisco said the project is on time and on budget. I think folks are going to be very happy with what they see, Cisco added. There's more parking and it's better organized. It's new and improved, and it really does look fantastic. And although you can't play with the playground equipment yet, it really does look cool. Schultz said final landscaping and grading are being done this week, with the parking lot getting its last layer of asphalt on Thursday and line painting happening before Saturday. The park furniture, including 2 types of picnic tables, lounge chairs, garbage cans, bike racks, and parking kiosks, are being bolted down. The completion of the whole park is scheduled for June 15th. Still to come is installing a rubberized surface around playground equipment, which is already up but can't be used without the base. Schultz said the surface has to be hand mixed and placed, and that is weather dependent. Beach parking is in effect to September 30th. Residents can buy a pass for $16.25 for the season. Residents and non-residents without a pass can pay $3.25 per hour at the meters to a maximum $20 flat fee for the day. Heart Hub seeing early success. New program designed for those facing chronic homelessness. Article by Bill Sawchuk. 6 weeks after its official opening, Niagara's homelessness and addiction recovery treatment, HEART Hub, reports it's onboarding 66 clients, 10 of whom are now housed, with 5 more slated to move in over the coming days. Housing First has been shown to be an effective approach to addressing both homelessness and substance use, Heart Hub manager Allison Chambers told Niagara Regional's Public Health and Social Services Committee meeting Tuesday. Recent research has found it to be more effective than treatment first models, with evidence also suggesting it can reduce the risk of fatal overdose and lower healthcare costs. The demonstration project has funding from Ontario's Ministry of Health through 2028 and is designed for people experiencing or at risk of chronic homelessness with complex mental health and addiction challenges. The hub aims to deliver wraparound supports that connect housing, mental health, addictions treatment, primary care, and social employment services. The March 27 opening on Queenston Street in South Catharines was part of a rolling provincial announcement of 28 new Heart Hubs across Ontario. As a region-wide provider, we deliver services across Niagara, and while our headquarters are located in St. Catharines, our staff meet individuals wherever they are in the community, including in shelters, encampments, and on the streets, Chambers said. Chambers also said, as a social service provider, the Heart Hub recognizes many of the individuals it supports are experiencing long-standing and complex trauma. Heart Hub services are delivered through a trauma-informed lens that provides safety, trust, and empowerment by recognizing the impact of trauma on behavior. And emotion. The Health Ministry is replacing previous consumption and treatment service models with Heart Hubs. Deputy Premier and Minister of Health Sylvia Jones previously announced the transition from harm reduction models to an abstinence-based approach, with an explicit statement that Heart Hubs will not provide supervised drug consumption, safer supply, or needle exchange programs. The Niagara Hub's collaborative model brings together an array of providers with expertise in different areas to enable wraparound and specialized supports, Chambers said. They include Gateway Residential and Community Support Services as the lead, the region, Reach Niagara for primary health care to homeless, marginalized, and underhoused populations, Quest Community Health Center, Didwa Da Didzne Aboriginal Health Center, Community Addiction Services of Niagara, and Oak Center for advanced support in education, employment, social, and financial goals when people are ready. You are doing some hard work and I appreciate it. We all appreciate what you're doing, Pelham County Wayne Olson said, before asking how residents can contact the Heart Hub. Chambers said the place to start is Niagara 211, a free, confidential, 24/7 helpline and website which connects residents to community, social, health, and government services. Niagara 211 ensures they're part of the coordinated access system, and if they require Heart Hub services, it will put them on the list for our care, Chambers said, adding there are about 700 individuals in Niagara experiencing chronic homelessness. The reason we're using it is so that we can truly target folks that have the highest need in our community, Chambers added. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. NRP launches Neighborhood Watch program. From Metroland staff. There are dozens of online neighborhood watch initiatives, some with thousands of members, and one thing all of them have in common is they're not connected to law enforcement. Niagara Regional Police are hoping to change that. On Tuesday, the NRP announced the launch of its formalized Neighborhood Watch program. It aims to channel residents' interest in keeping their neighborhoods safe by giving them the tools to make them more effective. The approach is about neighborhoods looking out for one another, police said, explaining the program aims to build awareness, encourage sharing of information, responsibility, and help people understand when and how to report concerns. Supported by the NRP Community-Oriented Response and Engagement Unit, the program can teach residents ways to reduce the risk of being victimized by crime, train them to be good witnesses so they can effectively recognize and report suspicious activities, teach them how to make their homes more secure, and help neighbors get to know each other and their routines so unusual activity does not go unnoticed. The NRP stressed neighborhood watches are not vigilante groups, and residents are not meant to take personal risks to prevent crime. They are also not a guarantee that crime won't happen in a particular neighborhood. Police last December announced their intention to launch the program, in part due to concern about the way online forums are being used. Specifically, police said some people were using these social media groups to report crimes instead of calling the police. They were further worried that the identification of suspects online could lead to vigilantism. For more information about the NRP Neighborhood Watch program, go to niagarapolice.ca/community/neighborhood-watch. To set up a group, download the registration form at niagarapolice.ca/media/JTNN4EAY. Neighborhood-watch.pdf and email it to police at neighborhoodwatch@niagarapolice.ca. Joelle McCullough found comfort in final days at Hospice Niagara. Family shares its story of Mason Walker House. Article by Dave Johnson. Joelle McCullough spent her final days in peace at Walker House. She was diagnosed with a rare appendix cancer when her twin boys, Jacob and Liam, were 2.5 years old. She battled the disease for 7 years. Joelle died in January, just 15 days shy of her 42nd birthday. 5 days after moving into Mason Walker House, a 10-bed hospice on Promenade Richelieu in Welland, operated by Hospice Niagara. She underwent various treatments and surgeries over the years, said her husband Clint, a general foreman for Gordon Wright Electric at the new Niagara Falls Hospital that's under construction. I took time off and I was at home with the kids doing online schooling because of COVID. It turned into a routine where Agnes Varenz, her mother, would take her to the hospital every week to get treatments. It felt like she was going to go on forever at that point. It didn't feel like she was going to pass, he said. Joelle's willpower and her attitude are what kept her going. A lot of people would have given up earlier. Even though she wasn't comfortable much of the time, she never showed it or mentioned it to anyone. She was always positive. If she were awake and able to do things, she would, said Clint. With no other options and losing sleep worrying about Joelle at their Port Robinson home, the family turned to Hospice Niagara. Clint said it was the right time for Joelle to move into Walker House. Vree said her daughter did everything she could to prolong her life, including undergoing radiation to shrink the tumor in her appendix. It was clear to her that she needed to be there. I've had a lot of experience with Hospice Niagara because of the kind of work I do, she said. As a private therapist, Vree has worked with clients who moved into Niagara Hospice's Stabler Center in St. Catharines. I knew this would be a good option, she said, praising the supportive staff. Accepting she was going to die before moving into Walker House, Joelle was able to relax a bit, as was the family once she had a room. Despite knowing her fate, the family said Joelle lived well in her last week as they spent time with her. Liam and Jacob watched movies in bed with their mom, played games, and made plaster thumbprint keepsakes. They also attended Bounce Up, a 4-week grief support program for children who are coping with a loved one's impending death. They still attend counseling sessions. Clint said the family was treated with respect during Joelle's time in hospice and afterward. It was comfortable for the kids. She was able to do things with the boys, and we could come and go as we wanted. The staff was amazing. He said the staff would leave the family alone, but were always right there if needed. He and Vrez said the staff embraced them as family. Joelle wouldn't have been nearly as relaxed or calm for the last week if she were at a hospital, said Clint. It was a positive experience, as opposed to being in a hospital, where it's not really comfortable for the kids to go and hang out or even be there. It's definitely a better option to come here. The two said Walker House was quiet, comfortable, and peaceful. She could finally sleep well, and the boys could lie in bed with her, said Clint. Vree said although her daughter missed her bed at home, the family was able to decorate her hospice room the way they wanted, filling it with things Joelle and the boys loved. They encourage you to make the room as homey as possible. I think it's important to let people know that hospice is a place to live well, she said. Joelle lived well in that space, her mother said, but in the quiet early hours of January 12th, before the sun rose or the family could return to her side, she died. I got the boys up and we were here within 20 minutes. It was good for them to be able to say goodbye and see her, said their father. He and Vrez said there was no pressure to rush Joelle from the room, and the family was given all the time they needed to say their goodbyes. They do not chase you out of here at all. We could have had the room for 24 hours afterwards, said Vrez. Hospice staff assisted the family when it came time to make funeral arrangements. They were literally, we can call them for you, set up a meeting, said Clint. He said he didn't know much about Hospice Niagara before his wife moved into a room there, but would recommend it for people with terminal illnesses, especially if they can no longer be taken care of by a family member at home. Being 40, it was not on my radar, he said. Veriz said Joel, who had a positive spirit, got into Walker House at the right time. I met a few people who arrived at Hospice Niagara with a family member who passed the same day and said they wished they had brought them here sooner, she said. Now in the opinion section. Was nothing learned from Walkerton? Article by Joel Bacon and Jim Stanford. Safe drinking water is an essential element of public infrastructure. Communities cannot survive and thrive without it. Providing water services has therefore become core to what municipal and regional governments do, which is why we should be concerned about Ontario's Water and Wastewater Public Corporations Act. The Ford government insists the new legislation does not privatize water and wastewater services, but the new Water Corporations Act is privatization in effect, if not in name. It risks inflicting on Ontario communities the same kinds of harm and neglect that water privatization has become notorious for in Canada and around the world. During the heyday of privatization in the 1980s and 1990s, many countries sold off public water systems to private investors. Strong public opposition followed as, in many cases, water quality deteriorated, operations failed, fees increased, and public health and environmental disasters mounted. Ontario had its own painful experience, the Walkerton tainted water disaster in 2000, a consequence of previous progressive conservative provincial government's experiment with privatization of water inspections. Mass protests and advocacy campaigns led to remunicipalization of privatized water systems in many countries through the 2000s, and water privatization was increasingly viewed as a failed experiment. Privatization's inglorious history help explain why the Ontario government now insists it is not privatizing water and wastewater services. The problem, however, is that, in effect, it is. The Water Corporations Act creates a new framework allowing designated water and wastewater companies to operate water services and limits, through Bill 98, ownership of shares in water and wastewater companies to a municipality, the province of Ontario, the government of Canada, or an agent of any of them. Because of that limit, the government insists this is not privatization. How can it be, it asks, when private entities are barred from owning shares in water and wastewater companies? But this logic obscures what is actually happening. Because the Water Corporation Act allows an agent of any of them to own shares in a water and wastewater company, a private entity can own shares if it is designated an agent by a municipal, provincial, or federal government. The Canada Infrastructure Bank and the Build Ontario Fund already operate as agents of the federal and Ontario governments to initiate and facilitate private investment in infrastructure projects. Partnership among these entities and private actors would enable the latter, private actors, to own shares in and control water and wastewater companies in ways that could fully privatize water and wastewater services in a community. But even if shares in the water and wastewater company are owned only by public entities, their operation will still have the markings and ill effects of private ownership. That is because the Water Corporations Act requires water and wastewater companies to be incorporated under the Business Corporations Act. That imparts to them the same imperative as for-profit corporations to prioritize shareholders' financial interests prioritize shareholders' financial interests over all other interests. Managers of water and wastewater companies will face key decisions about who gets water and wastewater service, what kind of service they get, how much they pay for it, what infrastructure is built, how that infrastructure is maintained, and whether and to what extent workers and environmental interests are protected. In every case, they will be legally compelled to do what is in their shareholders' best financial interests, not what is in the best interest of communities. The new regime is privatization in effect, despite the government's obfuscations, and should be rejected to protect Ontarians' right to clean, safe, affordable water. Joel Backen is a University of British Columbia law professor. Jim Stanford is director of the Center for Future Work. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Feeling distracted these days? Blame your phone. Article by Lois Tuffin. Last month, my friend Deborah Rolls and I talked politics, religion, and books. We discovered we both had picked up copies of Johann Hari's Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention, and How to Think Deeply Again. However, neither of us had sat down to read it. Why not? We had been too busy with other distractions. After a hearty laugh, we both resolved to dive into it. And it has changed how I look and think about the world. Even before I started reading it, I had begun turning my smartphone off earlier and earlier each evening. I had deleted the TikTok app since the banality of the content was making me dumber. In the past years, I've read more books than in the last 5 years. Yet, I was still on edge and feeling pulled in multiple directions. Likewise, Harry had taken a 3-month detox from his phone. Yet, once it ended, he fell into old habits, checking X to see how many people followed his posts, and obsessively responded to beeps from his device. What he learned in the subsequent research resonated with what I'd already heard about tech firm strategies, and it may help you find understanding and ultimately more peace. With each new piece of technology, the flow of information to our brains has accelerated. It began with daily papers, then radio, and TV. Once we could get new updates in seconds from a device we carry with us all day, our brains adapted to this new pace. When we constantly pump new data in, we don't pause to process what we just absorbed. Without reflection, we cannot solve complex problems. Of course, it doesn't help our mental state to remain in a constant state of outrage about others' comments and decisions. How many times a day do you see a post that makes you feel the urge to madly type a response? And what good does it do? These days, I'm trying harder to sit back and observe other opinions without diving into the abyss. It's easier to walk away than you think. Then you don't have to check in to see if anyone reacted. Harry interviewed countless researchers and even the people who created the technology that has us hooked. He discovered the inventor of the endless scroll has deep regrets about the monster he created. He figures it makes people spend 50% more time on an app, which results in billions of people wasting the equivalent of 200,000 more human lifetimes every day. That sure stopped me from flicking to another page after page of mindless posts. Think about it the next time you're tempted by what's next. Ironically, the more stressed we get, the more we dive into online crap, and the cycle goes on. All this leads to large corporations gathering more personal data so it can feed you more ads. To do so, they need your constant attention, and they know how to get it. Most seriously, this technology erodes the brains of people who didn't grow up reading books or taking time to daydream without Instagram images sharpening their thoughts. Earlier this year, my niece dropped out of Fleming College after failing a key course. The information won't stay in my head, she said, without looking up from her phone. Scary, right? At first, Harry chastised himself for not having the discipline to resist the prompts we received to stay engaged. Then he learned how Google, Meta, and other have trained us to live this way. To resist, we need to hit the off button more often. Lois Tuffin is a longtime community advocate and activist for affordable housing, volunteerism, and other causes in Peterborough. In the humor opinion section, 'tis the season for garage sales. Opinion by William Thomas. Take my ex stuff yard sale. It's all gotta go, just like him. That'll attract customers, especially single moms. Years ago, near Chautauqua, New York, I spotted the best garage sale sign ever. Going to jail sale. Yes, returns will be accepted, but not before 5 years, 4 with good behavior. And the sign, huge garage seal, is a warning. Do not expect great used books. The Wainwright Port Colborne area has to be the junk sale capital of Canada. You cannot throw a stick without hitting a yard sale in the summer. And the stick comes free with that never-used bamboo Chinese steam thingy. You cannot clean out your garage in these parts without people stopping and making offers on the items closest to the road. In South Niagara, cleaning out a shed is known as a silent auction. After 100 years of these weekend five and dimers, why can't we at least get the name right? Yard sale, lawn sale, or garage sale? Likewise, after a century of retreating to rustic northern spots in the summer, Canadians still can't decide if it should be called a cottage, cabin, or camp. I just love the unwritten law behind the lawn sale. Whatever is left over at closing time goes to the Salvation Army. First, we go for cold, hard cash. And when that doesn't work, we embrace the idea of charity. The traditional Canadian yard, lawn, garage sale is actually an outdoor insult contest in which pieces of personal debris and spare change are the agreed-upon weapons of choice. It's a scam, but a good one if the weather is fine and the people are friendly. My garage sale, which takes place on the lawn, includes 3 card tables of junk, a jar of change, and no experience whatsoever. I will take a decade's worth of accumulated clutter that I'm too lazy to drop off at the dump and attempt to sell these recycled gems to you, an unsuspecting stranger. The tags say previously owned instead of worn out and abused. So that's me, the seller, sitting casually in a long chair with a cup of coffee and the morning paper, trying to appear nonchalant, because I alone know what evil lurks behind those masking tape price stickers. I am a swindler, and you, my prospective yard sale customer, you are my market, my mark. So as a professional yard sale rummager, you're rude, cold-hearted, and crass. You arrived at 7:30 a.m. when the sign said 8, and your car blocked my neighbor's driveway. Yard sale goers are a pain in the ass, but that's your job. You're supposed to make me feel cheap and sleazy. After all, I'm a scammer. If I didn't want to be humiliated, I wouldn't have taken out ads in the newspaper to invite you to come to my house and fondle my personal belongings. You're the type of person whose grandchildren will grow up to be dark alley scalpers. My nephew will supply them with counterfeit concert tickets. It's a very twisted world. I'm just glad we could be there for each other. Now lawn yard garage sales even have their very own county and West Country and Western song, with the refrain sorting through what's left of me and you. William Thomas is a Niagara-based humor columnist. He can be reached at williamjthomas@gmail.com. New restaurant pairing coming to Penn Center. Beer Town and Wildcraft Grill and Long Bar on tap. A pair of related restaurants are to open beside each other in Niagara Penn Center as part of their corporate ownership's planned expansion across Ontario. Charcoal Group of Restaurants plans to open Wildcraft Grill and Long Bar and Beer Town restaurants in the St. Catharines Shopping Center. Both are designed to be community gathering spaces rather than simply food and beverage destinations, the company said. Charcoal Group, in a release, said it is planning to spend $25 to $30 million over the next 18 months to open 5 Ontario restaurants at a time when many hospitality industry analysts are warning of a major contraction that could see thousands of establishments close this year. Opening dates for the Penn Center restaurants are not known. We're doing well and we're very optimistic about the industry and our investment into expansion, reflects that. Charcoal Group CEO Jody Palabuski said in a release, "We see continued opportunity for growth when it's grounded in strong hospitality and consistent guest experience. There are a lot of restaurant groups implementing short-term fixes," Palabuski said, "but there's no replacement for true hospitality. We're in the people business. Guests remember how they felt in your space, not just what was on the plate." Other restaurants operated by the company include Soleil Uptown, Charcoal Steakhouse, Martini's, Dell's Italian Kitchen, the Bauer Kitchen, the Bauer Bakery and Cafe, Moose Winooski's, and Sociable Kitchen and Tavern. NOTL resident opposes attempt to designate home. Article by Kevin Werner. The owner of a Parkway home is opposing the Niagara-on-the-Lake Heritage Committee's attempt to designate the building. Mustafa Sahin, who purchased the property at 15293 Niagara River Parkway from his parents in 2019, said a heritage report describing the reason for designation is not reliable. "We don't believe it meets the legal threshold of the Ontario Heritage Act," said Sahin. He said the home, which his parents purchased in 1971, has been restored inside and outside at least twice after fires. The historical value has not been established, he told the Heritage Committee on May 6th. The house has been significantly altered. It is not original to the area. I respectfully oppose the designation. The Heritage Report for what is called the Durand Sahin property says this 2-story wood frame house recalls architecture of the first English colonies. It was built in 1905 as a summer residence by the Rumsey family of Buffalo, New York. Heritage staff said the property has design value or physical value, along with historical value. Staff said the residence displays several characteristics of colonial revival style, including a box-like plan, symmetrical facade, gable roof, and a clapboard finish. The site, said Heritage staff, is associated with the earlier Field Farm and is located near Fields Point, where a battery was established during the War of 1812. In 1902, Mary Catherine Durand sold 19 hectares of land to Allen Rumsey. In 1908 and 1909, additional Durand lands were sold to Elizabeth Rumsey including property along River Road. Sahin said he didn't understand why the house is called Durand-Sahin House when the Durand family did not build nor live in the structure. Senior Heritage Planner Sumra Zia said she didn't want to refute the owner's argument against the report. They have done the research, he said. The committee deferred voting on designating the property until it visits the property and talks to the owner. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Grimsby's Wolverton development gets final approval from Town Council. Article by Mark Newman. The much-discussed and debated Wolverton residential commercial development at the corner of Mountain and Elm Streets in downtown Grimsby has received final approval from Town Council. Councilors voted 5-4 on Monday to greenlight the 7-story building with 150 rental units that has already been approved by the Ontario Land Tribunal, OLT. OLT supported the development on land at 13 Mountain and 19 and 21 Elm Streets. The addition of 23 Elm Street to that parcel required council support. Town planning staff support the project. This is an extension of what's already approved onto another property, said Ward 3 Council Jennifer Korstenje, who reluctantly supported the proposal. It's going to add 30 more units, 15 residential and 15 affordable units. That is a desperate need in our community. Mayor Jeff Jordan said he doesn't like the design of the proposed building. The massing of that building is a straight wall. It does nothing but blend into the escarpment, Jordan said. I'm torn because I think increasing our rental property inventory is important. I think that 10% affordable housing portion is very important, said Ward 4 Council Nick DeFlavio. I just don't think we have it right yet. Ward 1 Council Reg Freak said adamant the project needs to move ahead. We in the next 3 to 4 years are going to attract up to 1,000 jobs into this community, Freaky said. These people who come to work here in the facilities are going to need a place to live. They're going to be young people. Freaky said living in the Wolverton area also likely to walk to the downtown area and support the businesses there. Grimsby's got to grow up. We've got to expand, Freaky said. Otherwise, we become another town with tumbleweeds blowing through it. Councilors Freak, Korstenjean, Leanne Vardy, Ward 2, Don Howell, Ward 2, and Delight DeVoli, Ward 1, voted for the project. Jordan and Councilors DeFlavio, Veronica Choris, Ward 3, and Jacob Barrage, Weed 4, voted against it. Renowned architect's house to be torn down. Article by Kevin Werner. Demolition of a historic residence previously owned by prominent architect Don Chapman at the owner's request has been approved by Niagara-on-the-Lake's Heritage Committee. John Knight purchased the property at 15319 Niagara River Parkway in September of 2024 with the intent of restoring the building. But after reviewing the structure, it was determined the building had serious defects. What we were not prepared for, what were the major structural issues that became apparent, said Knight in an April 15th letter to the town. The building had major cracks in the foundations that had been previously concealed. In addition, the building had sunk as much as 5 centimeters. Several doors and windows were inoperable, and there were vertical cracks in the brick walls. There were also water leaks, including from the roof and floor. The site slopes down to the Niagara River in the rear and into a deep ravine on the north side. Knight said he attempted to insure the property, but was rejected by the insurance companies. The Knights have spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to fix it, said Michael Allen of ACK Architects during a presentation at the May 6 Heritage meetings, where he represented the Knights. They are not taking this lightly, he said. I've always admired this property. He said the Knights want to create a home for them and their family, as well as commemorate the legacy of the house and property. Knight told committee members that we are the most disappointed people in the room. He said when they purchased the house, there was a question about the structure, but we chose to go unstructured, a new house on the property. Under the Ontario Heritage Acts, once a property owner submits an application to demolish a historical building, the town has 60 days to issue a permit. Town staff in a report recommended providing the permit, saying the building is not safe. Heritage Committee Chair Drew Chapman said the past owners had attempted to maintain it as best they could. He said the building did not have eaves-throughs, which contributed to extensive erosion. A distinguished Niagara area architect, Don Chapman, purchased the property in 1962. He founded Chapman Murray Architects in 1953 and served on the town's Municipal Heritage Committee for more than 30 years. Among his designs are Niagara-on-the-Lake Town Hall and many of the town's hotels, including the Pillar and Post, Queen's Landing, Moffat Inn, Harbor House, and Shaw Club Hotel. Chapman designed the house in 1968, and it was completed in 1970. The residence is listed on the town's Heritage Registry. Chapman died in 2020 at the age of 94. The property was listed for sale in 2023 for $6.5 million. Councillor Tim Beluziak, who introduced a motion to have a commemorative plaque installed near the property and to have the building department establish the structure as unsafe, said it is a shame the home has to be removed. This is a substantial building, said Beluziak. We don't want to see it go. The committee agreed with the staff recommendation to approve the demolition application. The motion including having a plaque installed and seeking confirmation from the building department declaring the building unsafe. In the Ontario section, briefs, Toronto, robbers take $500,000 worth of jewelry. Toronto police say they're looking for 4 suspects who made off with over $500,000 worth of jewelry in an armed robbery on Sunday in the city's downtown core. Police say 4 masked men approached victims who were parked in a vehicle in the Spadina Avenue and Bremner Boulevard areas just before 5 a.m. They say the suspects held the victims at gunpoints, stole the jewelry, and fled the scene in a blue Nissan Rogue with stolen license plates. Police say one victim suffered minor injuries in the theft. Video of the alleged suspects, released by police, shows 4 people wearing dark clothing running through a parking area and piling into a dark-colored sedan. 7 people arrested in stabbing. Toronto police say they have arrested 6 teenagers and a young man for their alleged involvement in a stabbing in the north end of the city. Police say a 16-year-old from Toronto is charged with attempted murder, while 5 other teens, ranging from 15 to 18-year-olds, and a 20-year-old man face aggravated assault charges. The charges stem from a stabbing that police say happened Sunday in the Flemingdon Park area. Police say the victim and his friends had been in a fight with the suspects earlier in the day, and later on, when the victim was walking in the area, the suspects returned in their vehicles. Police allege the 7 suspects approached the victim and another fight broke out, during which the suspects brandished a knife and stabbed the victim. Police say the victim was hospitalized with non-threatening injuries. Minister says he can't interfere in Pride flag ban. From the Canadian Press. Education Minister Paul Calandra has denied a request to overturn a Catholic school board's decision not to fly the Pride flag because he cannot interfere in denominational issues, even in boards under supervision. Trustees at the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board voted 2 years ago against allowing flags marked Pride and other events. The board is now one of 8 under provincial supervision for what Calandra has called financial mismanagement, and last fall Calandra directed it to change its flag policy to fly orange flags on National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Calandra said he would also like to see the board fly the Pride flag, but his hands are tied. "I don't think worlds collapse just because you raise a flag," he said Wednesday at the legislature. "I think it is a show of respect. Having said that, they said it's a denominational issue, so they'll have to make that decision." The Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association asked Calandra to use his provincial supervision powers to direct that the board raise the flag, but Calandra said in correspondence back to OECTA obtained by the Canadian Press that he could make the direction on Every Child Matters and survivor flags last fall because they were not denominational matters. He cannot interfere under the Constitution or Education Act in the denominational rights. You've been listening to a reading of Articles and Features. From the Thursday, May 14th, 2026 issue of the Niagara Falls Review. We read from the Niagara Falls Review every Saturday at 7 p.m. Your reader has been Bruce. Thank you for listening. And as always, make it a great day.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Wall Street Journal Off Duty at 9 o'clock. We have Sports Illustrated at 10 o'clock. We have The Athletic. Stay with us for these readings and even more. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For nearly 40 years, radio reading has served people who are blind or have a print disability throughout western New York and southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service studios are located at 1199 Harlem Road. Please spread the word about your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. For more information, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which makes